Hello everyone, you're listening to the Earful Tower podcast. My name's Oliver G, and we got a bit of a different episode today. It's not a typical guest. In fact, it's not a typical guest at all. It's a cat. In fact, beyond that, it's several cats. 50 cats. Of course, I haven't really interviewed cats, but that is part of the topic at hand today. I went for a long walk in the Montmartre Cemetery, and it's really interesting, actually. You're going to hear all about it, but the gist of it is there are somewhere between 50 and 100 stray cats living there, being cared for by a number of mostly women, in fact, maybe all women, and I don't know, they've made their home there. Some have been born there, and it's a real interesting part of Paris. The reason I'm so excited about this cemetery, as maybe you've already noticed in my social media, is because with Paris on lockdown again, we can only go 1 kilometre from our homes. And luckily for me, this splendid cemetery, the Montmartre Cemetery, is within 1 kilometre of my house. So I've been in there walking around like a man possessed, like a zombie, I guess. And I've just been more and more intrigued by these cats. So here comes the story of it, as well as a bunch of interesting graves that you can find if you're ever in there. But stay tuned. Towards the end of the episode, I managed, against all odds, to find perhaps the only English-speaking cat lady of the cemetery. I don't know about you, but for me, there were serious flashbacks to when I talked to the crocodile lady at the Canal Saint-Martin. She even had the same kind of accent, but I promise it's a different woman. And I'm not going to reveal what she says about other animals in the cemetery, but I will say this, the word leopard was used. You'll have to listen to the end to find out more about that. One last thing before we get into it. She talks about how you can help donate money if you want to the sort of cat relief fund. I went and took a look at their website, École du Chat, the School of Cats, and it is positively prehistoric. I think you'll really struggle to donate money. If this episode's really popular, maybe I'll find a way that we can help them out. But otherwise, maybe next time you're in town, you can do what she says about bringing in a specific kind of cat food. But listen, that's enough of an introduction. I want you to close your eyes, unless you're driving. Imagine you're walking down Rue Rachel, which leads to the cemetery. It's an autumn day. The leaves are yellow. There's the sound of a crow in the background, perhaps. You're approaching the cemetery, and I'm about to take you in there. Are you ready? Let's do it. So here we are, folks, standing out the front of the cemetery, and just visually, in fact, maybe you can hear the cars going past. Visually, it's a stunning entrance because it's so unusual. Within the first 10-15 steps of getting in the only entrance to this cemetery, there's a big bridge of a road, it's not far from a highway going over the top. Yes, half of this cemetery is under a bridge, a busy bridge, so it's pretty weird, but that's not what we're going to talk about first. We're going to talk about the sign out the front, because it's got all the facts, so I don't even need to research it. The cemetery of Montmartre began in 1825, covers 10.5 hectares, and has 21,500 sépultures, which I guess is gravestones, or maybe sculptures, or maybe both. And it adds that there are 783 trees of 38 different species. And then it says there are very many world personalities of arts and letters from the 19th and 20th century buried here. But it's not so much them that we're interested in as we go in today. We're interested in the cats. So let's walk into the cemetery. Free to enter. Walk past the entrance. And I see, I'm not even kidding, I see a cat already. I'm going to get a little bit deeper before we continue. But here I go, straight under the bridge, where the tombstones reach up, stretching up to the bottom of the bridge. And my first cat that I see is, well, quite a beautiful stripy tiger kind of cat. You might say a liger kind of cat. It appears to be eating some food that's left out, and that's going to be a topic that we get back to in depth. But first, under the bridge, and we can say goodbye to the sound of the quick scooters going overhead, and hello to the sounds of silence and crows. So before we get into the facts of this cemetery, I would never lie or exaggerate to you guys. I'm being deadly serious. I've been in here about a minute and a half, and I've seen 6 cats. 6 cats within the first minute and a half. Where I'm standing, I can see 2. No, 3. I can see 3, and I'm going to upload lots of pictures to show you what I'm talking about. But I think that's the first thing that we should talk about. I've been in here a bunch of times. I've talked to a lot of the people who work here, and I've talked to a lot of the people who come in here and feed the cats. And I've asked them, always I ask them if they can estimate how many cats they think live inside this cemetery. And I've had answers up to 70. One woman told me, she said, the guys who work here think there's about 30, but I think there's about 70. And based on this first minute of walking, I wouldn't disagree with that woman. But we're going to get in deeper. The trick is with this cemetery, and probably with all the cemeteries in the world, but especially the one in Montmartre, is you want to get off the main sort of thoroughfares immediately. Because if you think of it, or the way I like to think about it, is a cemetery is like a village or like a condensed city, in that there's just rows and rows of these beautiful tombstones, and you can walk between them all. So to walk every row of this cemetery would take maybe years. And seeming I'm in the middle of a lockdown, that's probably what I'm going to try and do over the next few weeks. But there you go. Get off the beaten track immediately, and the cats will start popping out as they are right now. Okay, so I just met an elderly woman who was feeding the cats, and she seemed a bit put off when she saw that I was holding a microphone, so I didn't even ask if she wanted to be interviewed. I just figured I'd do background reconnaissance work and ask her about what she's doing here and so on. And so here's the rundown. So this is a woman who was maybe about 70 years old, and she said she comes specifically to feed one cat, a little sort of grey and white cat called Doudou. Doudou, I think, is the name for a blanket that a little child would have. But anyway, I asked her, I said, what are you doing? What's the story? And she said she comes once a week to feed Doudou. She knows where he lives. He answers to her calls, and she brings him cat food and slices of turkey. Dinde, she said, turkey. So she was there giving him little pieces of cut up turkey. I don't know why I'm wearing a mask, actually, because it's empty in here. Oh, that's much better. Now you can hear me properly. She said she feeds him once a week. She said she reckons there's about 5 women, all women who come in and feed the cats. And she said there's absolutely nothing illegal about it. Rather the opposite. She says she feels like she's encouraged to do it, because with 40 cats like that in a cemetery like this, they're going to need some feeding. Anyway, Doudou, I've met my first cat. Let's continue. Alright guys, I've walked a little further from the entrance now, getting into cat territory. I've seen a bunch more, taken a bunch of pictures, but I think it's time that we pause to talk about some of the famous people who are buried here. Now when it comes to cemeteries in Paris, I think everybody thinks Père Lachaise, which is the enormous touristy cemetery over in the 20th arrondissement where you'll find really famous people buried like Edith Piaf, Oscar Wilde, Jim Morrison from The Doors. Here in the Montmartre Cemetery, there's not even nearly the same caliber of international celebrities, but there are some really famous French people, and I'm going to talk about 3 in a row now whose graves are worth visiting for different reasons. Firstly, Dalida, probably the most famous of all in this cemetery. Dalida, I tell people sometimes that she's kind of like the Madonna, as in Madonna the singer of France, because she was iconic. She was hugely iconic in the gay community. She actually sang, oh, there's another cat. I think I might be Doudou again. She sang in several different languages, and she was kind of a queen of pop, right? So her gravestone is absolutely beautiful. It's a life-size sort of statue of her, and it is always absolutely covered in flowers. Now, for copyright reasons, I can't play Dalida music, but if we say that I've got my journalist hat on again, we could probably get away with 10 seconds of it. So here is one of her most famous songs called Parole, Parole, Parole. That's me singing it. Here's her.
Une parole encore. Parole, parole, parole. Écoute-moi. Parole, parole, parole. Je t'en prie. Parole, parole, parole.
But that's not the one I wanted to talk about right now. You can probably hear the crunch. Listen to this. Did I mention that it's autumn? There are autumn leaves everywhere, and I have to stop walking if you want to hear my voice, because I'm just out the front of another really beautiful and interesting grave. This is her name's France Gall, another singer who's hugely popular, and she has this. Her and her husband and daughter have this beautiful grave. I'm looking at it now, glass all around it, which is pretty unusual, with sort of exotic plants on the inside. I'm sure a lot of you guys haven't heard of her before, but she sang songs that will really quickly get French people on the dance floor. So, for example, she had one that we're going to play for journalistic reasons called Ella, just so you can get a vibe of it as well. Here it is. Now, the third musician that I want to point out, I'm not at his grave now, I know where it is though, it's on the other side, Berlioz. And the good thing about composers, he also has a really majestic grave, quite different to the other ones, but the good thing about composers, their music is all in the Creative Commons. So here's one of his more famous pieces of work. But see, I would imagine that most people listening to this show perhaps hadn't heard of all three of those musicians, but I think we could agree they're all worth knowing. They're the kind of people that are buried here as I walk through the crows to get to our next destination. One of the things I love about this autumnal walk in this beautiful cemetery is that with the seasons you feel like you see it differently. Like even when it's not locked down, I come here fairly often, maybe worryingly often for someone who's not a cemetery junkie, a taphophile I think they're called. But what I really like about it, two things. One is that it's so big that it's really easy to find new places that you've never seen. But secondly, it's layered sort of vertically, this cemetery, which I really like. Where I'm standing now, it'll be the equivalent of standing on the balcony of I'd say a 3-story building, and I can see over the whole western half of the cemetery. So it's really cool. It's not just like a flat cemetery like some of the other ones are. You can get different vantage points. You can easily walk for a long time without seeing another human. But funnily, as I say that, I see some of the workers here. I'm going to go and snag them and see if they can explain to me what the deal is with these cats. So maybe it's something about cemeteries, but they didn't want to be on the podcast. I tried to tell them that it was the Eiffel Tower podcast and people would be listening, but they didn't seem to care, and they didn't speak English either. But I got some answers. It was 2 chaps who worked here. That's me jumping between graves. Not on the graves, the edges. And they say that they estimate that there's around 50 cats living here. And I said, can you set the record straight? Is it legal or illegal to come in and feed them? And they said it's totally legal, but there are a handful of people who come and do it, so no one else really needs to do it. He said some people come in, they leave food for the staff to give to the cats, but if you do want to come in and do it, you can get away with it. Now, I said, what's the deal with all these cats? How did it, come to pass that they're all here? And he said it just sort of became a place for people to come and leave their cats when they don't want them anymore, stray cats. He said it's been happening for years. And weirdly, just to paint a picture, and once again, I'll put all the pictures up on the internet. In fact, I'm going to do a beautiful scroll for you Patreon members, patreon.com/the Eiffel Tower, but I've stumbled upon the grave of Alexandre Dumas, which is a really incredible gravestone, to be honest. So I'm still up on the platform where I mentioned before. You can see the view kind of behind him. We're up on that 3rd story kind of lookout, and he's got these great big sort of cement pillars next to him. He's there with a wreath on his head, a full body size in white marble. And wow, it's got to be one of the best graves in the cemetery. Can't believe I've never seen it before. It looks like something from Egypt. And weirdly enough, next to it is another spectacular grave, France. Theodore France, and this is really Egyptian. There's like 2, gosh, you guys are all going to know I'm not an Egypt expert, but 2 of those kind of sphinxy things with it's the head and body of a woman and then like legs of a lion. I'll get pictures to share, but so many treasures up in this place. But the thing I was going to add before I stumbled upon Alexandre Dumas' grave is the guys who work here said that about 10 years ago they estimated that there were around 200 cats. So this place would have been well and truly overrun. But he said they started to sterilize the cats, and that's why the population is under control. But there you go. It would have been even more catty than it is today. Onwards. Okay, guys, it's time for another round. I think I'll keep walking through the autumn leaves as we go because, otherwise, if you want perfect sound quality, I could do it in a studio, couldn't I? Still, on a break from the cats, I thought I'd do another round of famous people buried here because I've just done some more research. It was Alexandre Dumas the Younger, if you're one of the people who are keeping a close eye on this. So also a writer, but maybe not the Alexandre Dumas you were thinking of. Who knows? But some more famous people buried here. Let's get into the arts. Painters, including Edgar Degas, whose grave is quite hard to spot because his last name, which is spelled Degas, one word on his gravestone is separated by a space, so it looks like Degas. And it's a pretty big monument, but it's nothing like the Dumas one that we just looked at. And when I told the two guys I was talking to before that I'd found it, they laughed and said it's very rare that people find his grave because it's spelled differently. So there you go. There's that famous painter. There's also Gustave Moreau, who has a really brilliant museum down in Pigalle. There's Stendhal. There's Ari Scheffer, who I'll be honest, I'm not an expert on Ari, but I do remember the Musée de la Vie Romantique, which is that museum, and its tea garden is one of my secrets of Paris that you're going to hear on the very next podcast episode. Oh, I've given it away. But there's Scheffer. There's also François Truffaut, a cinema director. Émile Zola, of course, the writer, and Poulbeau, Francisque Poulbeau, an illustrator and cartoonist. Anyone who knows Montmartre will know his famous paintings and murals. But a little side note on that, before we get back to the cats, is if you check out my social media this week, I had been tipped off by a listener that a blood laboratory, as in where they do blood tests, had the most amazing mosaic ceramic Poulbeau paintings. And I went and checked that out, and it was really, really beautiful, incredible. It's free to get in there. Just pretend you're taking a blood test and walk in. But maybe you're not in Paris right now and you want to do a little bit of virtual travel. So there's never been a better time to follow the Eiffel Tower on Facebook and Instagram. Now, back to those cats. I've got to be honest about one thing, is I'm a little disappointed. Now I've talked to two of the women who feed the cats, and they were both really friendly, but if you're a regular listener to this show, you'll know that the last time I talked to an elderly Parisian woman about animals, just a refresher course, I asked her if there were any beavers in the Canal Saint-Martin. She revealed that she had released the crocodiles in there, and it was one of the best conversations I've ever had on this show. So I'll be honest with you, I'm disappointed because I thought talking to these elderly cat ladies that they'd reveal some Paris secret to me. I thought maybe they'd say that they'd seen the famous moose of the Montmartre Cemetery or a wolf or something, or a ghost. But look, it didn't happen this time, but no reason to get down. Chin up, we'll keep looking. But I think now's as good a time as any to mention that if you do like fantastic stories from Paris, that Canal Crocodile. Hey, maybe you're new to this show, you know what I'm talking about. We turned the Canal Crocodile into a children's book. You can still get it sent to you in time for Christmas if you buy it now. theeiffeltower.com/croc. Someone emailed me the other day and they said, I enjoy your podcast because it doesn't have any ads. That's about as addy as it's ever going to get. theeiffeltower.com/croc. But go and check it out. It's really exciting. We sent it into the printer last week. It was accepted for submission. In other words, there was no problems with all the layout and the graphics and everything. And it's going to be printed. It's going to exist on November 20th. And then it's going to be sent out from there. So don't delay if you want a copy. Hey, maybe you want to. Hey, maybe you should get a present for your niece or nephew. Oh, look, there's a black cat sitting on a tombstone and a load of crows behind it. I'm going to get a picture of it. But before I forget, speaking of cats, probably the most famous cat in Montmartre is the black cat, which is funny that I just seen one, because the black cat, you can hear that in the background, means I'm close to the edge of the cemetery, because you can hear the noises from the city. That's probably a garbage cleaner or something. But the black cat, Le Chat Noir, was a famous sort of salon or hangout for the artists over 100 years ago. And if you Google it now, there are two sort of restaurant bars in Paris called the Black Cat. Neither of them are exceptionally good. Neither of them are, in terms of what you might be looking for as a tourist, they're probably all right just to go for a drink, but they're not the same kind of thing. You're not going to be walking in the footsteps of all your favorite celebrities. But in terms of the actual black cat itself, you maybe are familiar. Oh, look, the black cat jumped off, but now there's another tiger cat sitting on the grave. And when I say that, I want to add, in the summer, something really cool about the cats in this cemetery is that they often sit on the roofs of the big tombs, just soaking up sun. They sit on the mossy roof and collect the sun. But anyway, the most famous cat, Le Chat Noir, has been famously drawn by an artist called Steinlen, who I'm sure you can picture it in your head. It's quite cartoonish. The cat's got yellow eyes and ears that stick to the side. He's sitting there looking directly at us. Isn't it scary with the crows in the background of a cemetery? But that cat is famous, but the painter behind it, his final resting place isn't in this Montmartre Cemetery, but in one that's just down the road, the cemetery of Saint Vincent, which is up on the other side of Montmartre, not far from the Sacré-Cœur, a lot smaller, but also a really beautiful cemetery. And the kind of thing that I'd say tourists almost always miss. I would highly recommend it. One of my favorite things in there is that they've labeled all the trees. It's also one of these cemeteries with loads of trees, but they've labeled them with their names. And you could find pomegranate trees, olive trees, all these beautiful, interesting species of trees. But this one's not so bad. Where I'm standing here surrounded by cats and crows, looking at all the flowers on the graves, the beautiful graves themselves, and the autumn leaves, with that beautiful background crowing, I can't really complain, can I? It makes lockdown all the more bearable when you can walk around in a cemetery. That is a sentence I never thought I'd be saying, but there you go. So Vivet, we're standing here, you've got a bunch of cat food. I can hear crows in the distance.
Oh, yeah. My enemies.
Your enemies?
Cats' enemies, yes. I love them. They're very intelligent, actually. But, 1 second of carelessness and wow.
That's true,
they steal us
so
food.
Smart. Yeah, they steal your food. Do
Yeah,
they steal the food
food
from the cats as well?
Yes.
Okay.
They even bite them,
What, they bite the cats?
The bite, yeah. They know they know the cats, all the cats. And if one of them is a bit weak, of course, they attack. Yes, they
like
attack
a vulture.
the cat.
That's horrible.
Like vulture. Well, in fact, it's the same family,
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't help us, in our mission.
And your mission is exactly what I want to talk about. I want to set the record straight. There are people listening here who maybe are thinking, I'm going to come into the cemetery and just give food to the cats. What do you say about that, Vivi?
I understand that they love cats, okay? I prefer people who love cats than people who hate them, because it may happen here.
Yeah.
But they don't understand that they need to be treated. And if they give food to the cats, we may have problems by giving them medicines, for example, because once they have, eaten food,
Sure.
They go to sleep in places we built for them, of course, to rest or to sleep. And that's troublesome for us.
So the problem is they maybe eat too much of the wrong food, and then...
And that's it.
Yeah, okay.
We can't see what they give, and they leave the boxes,
Yeah.
and it's a mess.
Yeah.
And here, cats are tolerated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, if it's messy, if they cause disorder, well, an association, SPA, here
Yes.
in France, may come collect the cats.
Right.
And they can't be adopted. Our cats can't be adopted, They're used to wildlife,
Yeah.
And it's impossible. We tried and no.
Maybe
people had to bring them back here.
Is that how the cats got here? They were all abandoned here over the years?
Well, at the beginning they were abandoned. Now we sterilize them. Some were born before sterilization, okay, some were born here, and they're very happy.
Yeah.
We've got freedom, more freedom than us.
That's true right now. Yeah.
Especially right now, yeah. So, yes, they're very happy.
Yeah.
People think, oh, the poor little ones. No, our cats are very happy and happier than you and me.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'm a pretty happy guy, I must say.
Yes, I can see that.
I've got to
Optimistic,
firstly,
maybe.
Maybe, yeah. I must say your English is actually fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much.
How did you speak such good English?
Well, I was a good pupil, you know.
Ah.
I was good at school.
I'm very impressed. I must say, honestly, it's excellent English. If we can finish on a note, if there is someone listening who comes in here and they love cats and they do want to feed them, is there a food that they should bring, for example?
Vet food.
Vet
Okay.
food?
Yes.
What's
yeah.
that?
Well, they buy the food at the vets. It's more expensive,
I
of
see,
course. Huh?
yeah.
Okay. Yes, but it's better.
So don't go and buy a croissant or a crepe or whatever.
No, or a cake. A cake. Sometimes it happens,
Cake?
you know.
No,
Yeah, cakes.
that sounds
here.
very French to
Of
me.
course.
Very Marie Antoinette. what? The other thing I wanted to ask, I've asked everyone how many cats there are here. Everyone's given a different answer.
Actually, some were abandoned, have been abandoned recently. But I think 50 or so.
And
yes.
how many do you know?
Not all of them, but yes, lots of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is this your spot that you always come to feed them right here?
No. Lots of all the pots in the cemetery.
Okay.
I know them. I memorize them, and I can replace. Today, I'm replacing a person who's absent because of the COVID.
The COVID, the word that we shall not mention.
Yeah.
We're staying optimistic and
okay,
positive.
Yeah.
But okay, I know I said last question, but I have one more. If there's one gravestone here that you particularly recommend, if we forget cats for a minute.
A gravestone here. It depends. Yes, the grave, not my grave, but
no.
the grave that brought me here. Cine.
Cime.
Cine. Sine, accent. Cine, who used to work at Charlie Hebdo.
Oh yes, okay,
Yes, in
right.
the past.
A
But in the
cartoonist.
past, it was no more in Charlie Hebdo when there was the
I see,
attack.
I
Okay,
see.
but he's got his grave here. I don't know if you've seen
Not yet.
seen it, or you should.
I will.
It's a cactus.
Oh, I've seen the cactus with the arms coming. It looks like arms hugging somebody.
Yes,
Yes,
with a
I
bunch
have
of
seen it.
flowers now.
That's
yes,
a good
okay.
choice. That's a beautiful grave.
It's a beautiful grave with the inscription, mourir, to die. I don't know in English what you could say.
What does it say in French?
Because in French it's mourir, plutôt crever. And crever, it's, is a synonym of mourir.
Okay. That's hard to translate that.
It's hard to translate that, okay. And it's a documentary about him, okay, called Mourir plutôt crever. Okay.
And crever, is that a positive or a negative word?
It's harsher,
Okay.
crever.
I'll try and find a translation of that.
A bit colloquial,
Right, okay.
yeah.
That probably sums him up a little bit then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And lots of cats. He was famous in the USA,
Oh, really?
yes, in the
Seen it.
50s, for drawing cats
It fits
and
perfectly.
making, playing on words.
I see.
For example, chapeau, which means hat. Okay, chapeau, cat. Okay, chapeau, and he drew cats. Wearing cats. That's a
Oh,
basic
so cats
example.
wearing caps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and lots of he played on words like that.
I love it. I'm going to
drawing
find
cats.
pictures and
Yeah.
and share them.
You should see. There are books with these cats.
I will look them up, but you just reminded me that Steinlen or Stenlein,
Yes.
how do you pronounce it?
Steinlen.
Steinlen, and the Chat Noir.
Yes.
He's not buried here though, is he? He's in Saint-Vincent.
Saint-Vincent. Yes. Okay.
That
Smaller,
seems-
which
that-
is smaller.
That
yes.
seems wrong. I feel like he should be buried with the cats.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Quite right.
Yeah.
But for Cine, okay, it's successful.
Cine is a success.
And there are lots of cats near his grave.
At the cactus.
Yes, the cactus. Yes,
You know-
I've got photos. Yeah.
It would be wrong of me to not ask the very last question. I promise this is the last. This is a promise, the last one. Are there any?
Never the end. With
No,
me.
this is the end. Yeah, are there any? And you have to answer me honestly. Are there any other unusual, exotic animals living in this cemetery?
Well, you call them slugs?
Slugs.
Yeah.
The insects, the slimy insects.
No.
Yeah, that's a
No,
slug.
It's not a snail, but
A snail without a shell.
well, that's it.
A
So
slug.
slugs. Okay, the correct
That's
word.
not very
Okay,
exotic.
good. It's not very exotic, but you know, I'm getting old, and it's here. I was born in the countryside, very important, so I know a lot about animal life. And it's the first time I've seen slugs like that.
Really?
Yeah, leopard slugs.
Leopard slugs.
Like, very exotic, really.
I feel like a leopard would be
I
more
mean-
exotic, but
But you know what?
what?
They eat our European slugs. I don't know where they
Okay.
come. Yeah, okay. They eat the babies, you know.
These
Preventing
cannibalistic.
them for.
So is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a good. Well, neither good nor bad.
You know what's funny? A leopard is a type of cat.
Yeah.
So a leopard
Yeah.
slug is the perfect exotic animal.
Okay, so a perfect exotic animal. So I was right.
You're exactly right. I'm imagining these leopard slugs are going to be as big as my arm, so I'm going to go and look for them.
No, but the big slugs.
You can't change my imagination. They're a meter long. I'm going to go and look for some. Vive, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
And here we are, rather fittingly at the end of the walk. I found the cactus that Vive, what a lovely woman, that Vive referred to, and it is beautiful. I've taken pictures of it. It's like a cactus that is as tall as I am, and it's got 4 sort of branches that look like they're embracing something, and they've been filled with beautiful flowers. In fact, the whole grave is full of flowers. As for the pun, mourir plutôt crevé, even French people have tried to help me translate this in the time I walk between the two. It's impossible. You have to be French to get it, apparently, but it's I'd rather die. Doesn't make sense. But apparently they say plutôt crevé is the response you'll give when you'd say, I'd rather die than do something, you know? You want to do the dishes? Plutôt crevé. So if you can come up with a good translation, and I mean a really good one, I'm not interested in half-baked attempts here, but send it in. But look, that's the end of my walk. I'm really glad that we got Vive at the end there. I felt like I really learned something. As for information on how you can help, if you want to help these cats out and the people feeding the cats, then if I can find one, I'll put it in the show link, or I'll mention it afterwards. But what a walk. I'm going to end on this. If you are ever in Montmartre, fair enough, go and see the Sacré-Cœur. Sure, go and see the Moulin Rouge, walk around the cobbled streets, Rue des Abbesses, get it all done. But if you want a really cool experience, the Montmartre Cemetery, it's 10 hectares full of amazing gravestones, trees, pesky crows, and beautiful cats. I would recommend you do the walk. It's an Eiffel Tower guarantee. This is one of the most interesting things to do, not just in the neighborhood, but maybe in the city. But it's been lovely sharing this brief escape with you guys. And if you enjoy it, send it to a friend. If you really enjoy it, go and look at the extras on Patreon and see all the pictures of everything I've been talking about. As for me, I'm going to head out now, back home where a bunch of chores are waiting for me. Do I want to do the chores? Plutôt crevé. Au revoir, everyone. Talk to you soon.